This is as useless as you are." Lucas's words landed like thrown stones in the silent living room. My face burned instantly, as if I'd been slapped. My fingers, already etched with the lines of time, trembled around the small box holding the watch I'd chosen with such care. A classic analog watch. Traditional. Like me. His friend snickered, that sharp, cutting sound teenage laughter makes. I looked at Michael, my son, waiting. For what? A defense? A clear rebuke from my grandson? He merely glanced away, visibly embarrassed, muttering something barely audible. A soft, almost imperceptible murmur, meant to pass for a scolding. "Lucas, you shouldn't say that." Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, feigned deafness. She simply kept arranging the appetizers on the table, as if perfectly aligning those mini quiches was the single most crucial task in the world at that moment. My breath hitched. 67 years on this earth, and I'd never felt so utterly diminished, so disposable. "Excuse me," I managed to say, my voice a frail whisper. "I think I need to go." "Already, Mom?" Michael asked, his tone less concerned than overtly relieved. "But we haven't even sung Happy Birthday yet." "I'm feeling a little under the weather," I lied. Or perhaps it wasn't a lie at all. My heart ached, a genuine physical pain. I walked out of that house, my son's house, a home where I had helped pick out every piece of furniture, clutching that rejected watch and carrying a pain that felt heavier than all my accumulated years. You must be wondering how we arrived at this point. How a grandson could utter such words to the grandmother who practically raised him alongside his parents. How my own son could stand by and permit such blatant disrespect. I ask myself that very question every single day. Everything began to shift about 3 years ago, right when Lucas plunged headfirst into his teens. That small boy who once raced into my arms shrieking, "Grandma!" slowly vanished, dissolving like an old photograph losing its vibrant hues. In the beginning, the changes were subtle. He started refusing my homemade chocolate chip cookies, claiming he was watching his diet. Then, our cherished weekend visits to my house morphed into plans with friends. Spontaneous hugs were unceremoniously replaced by distant, perfunctory nods. "It's his age," Jennifer would offer, always with that polite, practiced smile that never quite reached the depth of her eyes. All teenagers go through this phase. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps it was just his age. But there was always something in her gaze, a barely veiled satisfaction that unsettled me, as if she secretly relished watching the strong bond between me and Lucas slowly unravel. Jennifer had never truly liked how close I was with Lucas. In those formative early years, when she had to return to work after maternity leave, I was the one who practically raised him. We spent entire afternoons immersed in stories, games, and the quiet comfort of cuddles. "Grandma Susan will fix it," he used to declare whenever something broke or he craved a special treat. That constant reliance on me seemed to subtly irk Jennifer, though she never voiced it openly. Michael, my son, had always been a born peacemaker. From childhood, he avoided conflict at any cost. When Richard, my husband, was still alive, he often mused, "That boy's either going to be a diplomat or suffer a great deal in life." Richard, as always, was right. Michael chose to suffer. Our home had always been modest, yet filled with warmth. Richard worked diligently as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and I was an elementary school teacher. We weren't wealthy, but we never lacked for anything essential. Michael grew up steeped in solid values: respect, honesty, hard work. When he met Jennifer in business school, I initially believed they shared much in common. Both studious, both determined. But I soon grasped that Jennifer harbored entirely different ambitions. She hailed from a family of greater means and made no secret of her desire for elevated status. "Mom, Jen got an internship at that big corporate firm," Michael once exclaimed, his eyes alight with admiration. "She says she could be in management in 5 years." Jennifer delivered on her promise. In less than 5 years, she commanded a leadership position, earning a salary that enabled them to purchase a spacious house in a ritzy part of town. Michael also advanced professionally, but always, it seemed, in the considerable shadow of his wife's achievements. When Lucas was born, it was as if I saw my son, reborn himself. He blossomed into a dedicated, ever-present father. In those initial years, our family unit felt complete, perfect. As a recent widow, I found in my grandson a renewed reason to truly smile. "Mom, I don't know what we'd do without you," Michael used to tell me, especially after I'd spent hours caring for Lucas so they could work or simply find a moment of peace. But as Jennifer's career soared, an imperceptible shift began in our family dynamic. Visits to my house grew increasingly infrequent. Our cherished Sunday dinners, a tradition since Michael was a little boy, started getting canceled for vaguely defined, unavoidable commitments. "It's her job, Mom," Michael would always justify, steadfastly defending his wife. "You know how tough it is for a woman to hold a leadership position." I understood. Or at least I desperately tried to. After all, my generation fought tirelessly for women to occupy such powerful spaces. Yet I sensed something more at play, something that transcended mere career ambition. Lucas began attending an exorbitantly expensive private school where his friends were the children of CEOs and influential politicians. His clothes, once simple and comfortable, were systematically replaced by expensive designer brands. His phone was invariably the latest model. "He needs to fit in," Jennifer explained, a dismissive wave of her hand when I dared to comment on the burgeoning expenses. In that crowd, appearances are everything. It was around that time that I first observed the significant behavioral changes in my grandson. He started making offhand comments about my house. "It's so small, Grandma." About my clothes. "Nobody wears that stuff anymore." Even about the way I spoke. "That's old people talk." Each comment was a small, sharp stab. But I swallowed the pain, forcing a smile, trying to understand, desperately trying to adapt. Perhaps I was truly out of touch. Perhaps I just needed to try harder to connect with him. I started watching the same television shows he devoured, immersing myself in research about the computer games that so fascinated him. I tried to decipher the ever-evolving language of today's teenagers, but the more I strained to bridge the gap, the further he seemed to pull away. "Leave him alone, Mom," Michael would say curtly on the phone when I'd voice my worried observations about the growing distance. "It's just a phase." A phase? How many times had that single dismissive phrase echoed in my ears over the last few years? 6 months ago, I had a nasty fall at home. Nothing critical. I merely slipped on the bathroom rug and twisted my wrist. But the scare itself was immense, especially because I lay on the floor for nearly 2 agonizing hours before I could even manage to reach the phone. I called Michael. He was caught in an important meeting and didn't answer. I left a message. I called Jennifer. She picked up, her voice rushed, impatient. "Susan, I'm literally walking into a presentation right now. Can this be quick?" I explained what had happened, attempting to minimize the severity while still making it undeniably clear I needed immediate assistance. My God, how scary! Look, I simply can't leave work right now. Michael's out of town, tied up with clients. Can you call a cab to the hospital? We'll talk later. I hung up the phone, a tight, suffocating knot forming in my throat. I lived just 2 blocks from their house. 2 blocks. I called a cab, just as she'd suggested, and made my way to the emergency room alone. A twisted wrist, they confirmed. Nothing broken. I returned home with an improvised sling and a heart that felt impossibly heavy. Michael called me that night, his voice thick with worry, apologizing 1,000 times over. He promised he'd come see me the very next day. He didn't. He sent a text explaining an emergency at work had unexpectedly arisen. I understood. Or I pretended to understand. Jennifer never once mentioned the incident again. Lucas, when he finally learned of it, simply shrugged, uttering, "That's why old people shouldn't live alone." Old. At 67, with my mind sharp and my body perfectly capable, save for some nagging arthritis that flared up on cold days, I was too old to live alone, yet not important enough to merit a moment of their time when I desperately needed help. It was in the unsettling wake of that episode that I began to reevaluate so many things. The house I live in, my parents' inheritance, had always been destined to be divided between Michael and my daughter, Emily, who'd been living in Portugal for over a decade. Emily married a Portuguese man, has 2 children I barely know in person, yet she never fails to call me weekly. Even with the vast distance separating us, I always feel her warmth, her genuine, unwavering concern. "Mom, why don't you come spend some time with us?" she always invited. The kids would absolutely love to meet their grandma in person. I had always refused, always stating I couldn't possibly leave Michael and Lucas, that they needed me. What utter foolishness on my part. The savings I'd meticulously accumulated throughout my life as a teacher weren't a massive fortune, but they represented a profound sense of security. I had always envisioned them as a lasting legacy for my children and grandchildren. Money that could potentially aid Lucas with college, perhaps. Or serve as a down payment for a great-grandchild's first home, far in the future. But after that devastating fall, after so many small, cumulative slights and disrespects, I started to question, is this truly the legacy I wish to leave? Money for someone who utterly fails to value my presence while I'm still alive? Lucas's 16th birthday party proved to be the final shattering straw. 16 years old. I'd scrupulously saved for months to purchase that specific watch. It wasn't digital, possessed no smart features. It was a beautiful, meticulously crafted traditional watch, the kind that endures for decades if cared for properly. Something tangible he could keep, perhaps even pass down to a son of his own someday. This is as useless as you are. That caustic phrase continues to echo in my mind as I walk back home, utterly alone, hot tears blurring my vision. The rejected watch package weighs in my hands as if forged from solid lead. I step into my house, the very house that belonged to my parents, where I spent my childhood, where I raised my own children, where I lovingly cared for Richard until his very last breath. The walls are covered in a tapestry of photographs. Michael as a baby in my arms. Emily on her very first day of school. Lucas, a tiny newborn. Lucas at 5, a gap-toothed grin lighting up his face. Lucas perched on Grandpa Richard's lap. The boy in that photo. Where did he go? I gently place the watch on the living room table and make my way to my bedroom. Deep in the back of my closet, I retrieve the forgotten boxes of old photographs, I sit on the bed and begin sifting through the faded images, one by one. Lucas learning to walk, his tiny hands gripping mine. Lucas fast asleep in my lap after an exhausting afternoon at the park. Lucas, his face smeared with chocolate, giggling that pure, unadulterated childish laugh. Tears well up and fall onto the precious photos, and I quickly wipe them away, so careful not to damage the fragile images. These memories, they are simply too precious to be marred, even by my own raw tears. 3 days crawl by, agonizingly slow. My phone remains stubbornly silent. No one calls to check on me. No apology materializes. Nothing. On the crisp morning of the 4th day, I make my unwavering decision. I put on my best outfit, a sharp navy blue suit Liz had sent me last Christmas, and head directly to Mr. Miller's office. He's been my lawyer for over 2 decades. "Susan, what a pleasant surprise." He greets me with a genuinely warm smile. "Are you all right? You look a bit down." "I'm fine, Mr. Miller. I just need to make some significant changes to my will." He looks at me, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, but asks no questions. He's known me long enough to understand that I don't make decisions without profound consideration. I explain precisely what I want. The house will be sold after I'm gone, and half the proceeds will be donated to a foundation supporting abandoned seniors. The other half will go directly to Liz. My savings, those will be converted into a comprehensive scholarship fund for underprivileged young people. Chris and Lucas will receive only personal items of purely sentimental value. "Are you certain about this, Susan?" Mr. Miller asks, adjusting his spectacles, a hint of surprise in his voice. It's a drastic shift. "I am, Mr. Miller, more certain than I've ever been in my life." He meticulously jots everything down, then begins preparing the necessary documents. Before I leave, he poses one final question. "Susan, do you wish for me to inform your son about these changes?" I pause for a moment, considering. That won't be necessary, but if he asks, you may confirm it. I leave his office feeling an odd, potent mix of deep sadness and profound liberation. It's not about revenge. I've never been that kind of person. It's about dignity, about finally, truly understanding that I deserve respect. On the walk home, I pass a vibrant community center with a colorful flyer taped by the entrance. Painting classes for seniors. Enrollment open. I stop, my gaze drawn to it, hesitating. I'd always harbored a love for art, but I'd never had the luxury of time to truly dedicate myself to it. There was always someone who needed me, always something seemingly more important to do. I walk into the community center, and I walk out, proudly enrolled in a painting class that begins next week. Yesterday, I received a call from Chris. His voice sounded strange, laced with an unfamiliar worry. "Mom? Are you all right?" "I'm fine, son. Why do you ask?" "It's just... Well, Mr. Miller called me to confirm some of your information. Did something happen?" I feel my heart quicken, but I maintain a calm, steady voice. "Nothing beyond what you already know, son. Lucas is sorry, Mom. He's just a teenager. You know how they are at that age." "I do know, Chris. And I also know how adults are who allow that kind of behavior." The silence on the other end of the line is utterly deafening. "Mom, can we talk? Maybe come over later?" "Not today, son. I have a painting class soon." "Painting class?" "Yes, I started last week. I'm loving it." More silence. I could almost hear the intricate gears turning in his head, struggling to process this entirely new version of the mother who had always been unconditionally available. "I'm hanging up now, Chris. I don't want to be late." Before he can utter another word, I end the call. Today, as I meticulously prepare my paints and brushes for class, I glance at the analog watch on my wrist. Yes, the very one Lucas had so disdainfully rejected. I decided to wear it. Every quiet tick-tock serves as a potent reminder that time is far too precious to squander on people who fail to truly value us. I don't know what the aftermath will be when Chris and Lucas finally discover the full extent of the changes I've made. I don't know if this marks the beginning of a true reconciliation, or if the chasm between us will simply widen. What I do know, with absolute certainty, is that for the first time in a very long time, I am living for myself. And that, in itself, is a legacy I'm finally forging for me. The clock strikes 2:30 p.m., time for my painting class. Today we're learning about perspective, how things look vastly different depending on the angle from which you view them. What a perfectly fitting lesson for this singular moment in my life. I grab my bag, double-check that I have all my art supplies, and gently close the front door. The day is bathed in sunshine, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves on the street trees. I decide to walk to the community center. It's only a 15-minute stroll, and my doctor insisted walking is beneficial for my arthritis. On the way, my mind refuses to let go of the conversation with Chris. His worried voice still echoes, a persistent drone in my thoughts. It wasn't concern for me, I finally realized, but for what I might have done. With the money, with the house, with the inheritance. When did we become like this? When did love twist into a calculated investment? I vividly remember an afternoon, many years ago, when Lucas was a mere 6 years old. It was a scorching summer Sunday, and Chris and Sarah had left him with me while they attended one of her work events. "Grandma, tell me that story about your dad again," Lucas asked, his voice bright as we ate ice cream on the porch swing. "Which one, honey? The one about the war?" "That one." His small eyes sparkled with wide-eyed anticipation. I smiled, gently settling him onto my lap. "My father, your great-grandpa John, was very young when he was drafted for the war. He'd just married my mother and was so incredibly scared he wouldn't come back." "But he did come back, right, Grandma?" Lucas interrupted, even though he knew the story by heart. "Yes, he came back. But before he left, he planted a young cherry tree in the backyard of the house where they lived. He told my mother, 'If I don't make it back, take care of this tree as if it were me. When it bears fruit, tell our children it was their father who planted it.'" Lucas looked at the cherry tree in the back of my yard. The very same tree, now immense and heavily laden with ripe fruit. My father came back from the war, thank goodness, and together they watched the tree grow, bear fruit, and they watched me be born too. This house we're in was theirs, and this cherry tree. I pointed to the leafy tree, its branches swaying gently. Is the exact same one my father planted before he went to war. "So it's older than you, Grandma?" Lucas asked, utterly impressed. "Much, much older. And it'll still be here long after I'm gone." Lucas frowned, a flicker of worry crossing his young face. "You're going away, Grandma?" I hugged him tight. "Someday, honey. We all will. But that's a long, long way off." He remained thoughtful for a moment, then sprang off my lap. "Let's pick some cherries. I want to climb the tree." We spent the entire afternoon picking cherries. Lucas clambered onto the lower branches, laughing his head off every time he managed to reach a perfect, plump fruit. His fingers and mouth were stained a deep purple from the juice. When Chris and Sarah returned to pick him up, he dashed to them, proudly displaying his harvest in a tiny beach pail. "Dad, Grandma's tree is magic. It's older than everyone, and it's gonna stay here forever." Chris smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "It really is a very special tree, son." Sarah looked at Lucas with a look of distinct disapproval. "Look how dirty you are. And it's almost dinner time. You'll ruin your appetite eating so many cherries." "Leave him alone, Sarah," Chris interjected softly. "I used to spend afternoons just like this when I was his age." Sarah shrugged, clearly annoyed. "Come on, Lucas. Time for a bath." As they prepared to leave, Lucas ran back to me and hugged me fiercely. "Thanks for the best day ever, Grandma. When I grow up, I'm gonna live here with you and we'll eat cherries every day." I kissed his forehead. "That would be wonderful, my love." That night, after they had left, I sat on the porch, gazing at the cherry tree, and wept. Not from sorrow, but from a happiness so pure it ached deep in my chest. Frank was still alive then, though his illness had already begun its cruel work. He sat beside me and gently took my hand. "What is it, Susan?" "I'm just thinking about how life is cyclical," I replied, my voice thick. "My father planted that tree before he went to war, terrified he wouldn't return. Today our grandson picked fruit from it, with not a single fear in his heart." Frank squeezed my hand, a silent comfort. "That's how it should be. Each generation a little happier, a little safer than the last." I snapped back to the present, realizing I've already arrived at the community center. The memory of that sun-drenched afternoon with Lucas brings a fresh lump to my throat. Where is that boy who marveled at a simple cherry tree, who saw magic in the most ordinary things? I enter the classroom and am greeted by Mrs. Henderson, our painting teacher. She's almost 80, yet possesses an enviable, boundless energy. "Susan, so glad you're here. Today we're working with warm colors. Have you chosen your subject yet?" I smile, setting my materials on the table. "I think I'll paint a jabuticaba tree." The class unfolds peacefully, a quiet rhythm of brushstrokes. There's something profoundly therapeutic about mixing the paints, watching the vibrant colors slowly take shape on the paper. My jabuticaba tree isn't perfect. The proportions are a bit off, and the fruits resemble grapes more than actual jabuticabas. But there's an undeniable life to it. "That's looking lovely," comments Helen, a kind woman sitting next to me. "Is that a tree from your home?" "Yes," I reply. "A very special tree." When the class ends, I carefully pack away my supplies. Mrs. Henderson approaches to examine my painting. "There's real feeling in this piece, Susan. Keep working on it next class." I leave the community center feeling lighter, a subtle buoyancy in my steps. The sun has already dipped lower on the horizon, casting a soft golden light over the streets. I decide to stop by the grocery store before heading home. I need bread and milk. At the checkout, I run into Brenda, a long-time neighbor. "Susan, long time no see. How are you?" "I'm well, Brenda. And you?" "Oh, just getting by. You know how it is, age doesn't forgive." She laughs, rubbing her knees. "So tell me, does your grandson visit much these days? He was such a sweet little boy." I feel a sharp pang in my chest. "Not really. He's a teenager now, you know how it is." Brenda nods, her expression understanding. "Oh, I know it. My oldest grandson went through that phase too. Thought his grandma was a nuisance. But it passes. You'll see. He's 25 now and comes over for Sunday dinner every week. I offer a strained smile, grateful for her earnest attempt at comfort. I hope so, Brenda. I really do. I pay for my groceries and bid her farewell. On the way home, I mull over my neighbor's words. Is it truly just a phase? Will Lucas ever revert to that affectionate boy I once knew? Or has Jessica finally managed to completely alienate him from me? When I arrive home, I immediately notice a car parked out front. Chris's car. My heart gives a startled leap. I open the gate slowly, trying to compose myself, to organize my scattered thoughts. I hadn't expected him today. Chris is seated on the porch swing, absently staring at his phone. When he sees me, he quickly stands. Mom, we need to talk. I take a deep, steadying breath. Good afternoon, Chris. I wasn't expecting you. I know I'm sorry to drop by without calling, but after our phone conversation, I got worried. I unlock the door and step inside, setting the groceries on the kitchen counter. Chris follows me, visibly nervous, his movements jerky. Want some coffee? I offer, more out of ingrained habit than genuine desire. Yes, please. Thanks. As I brew the coffee, I feel his gaze intently following my every move. There's something unmistakably different about Chris today. A restless unease, an urgency that is entirely uncharacteristic of him. How was your painting class? He asks, attempting to sound casual, a forced lightness in his voice. It was good. I'm painting the jabuticaba tree. Chris looks out the kitchen window, his eyes fixing on the sprawling tree in the backyard. Grandpa John's tree. Yes, that's the one. I serve the coffee, and we sit at the table. For a few taut moments, we remain in silence, only the quiet clink of cups against saucers filling the otherwise heavy air. Mom, Chris finally begins, his voice strained. What exactly is going on? Why did you go to Dr. Peterson? I look directly into my son's eyes, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. I went to make some changes to my will. Chris swallows hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. What kind of changes? The kind of changes a person makes when they realize they need to fundamentally reevaluate their priorities. Is this because of what happened at Lucas's party? Mom, he's just a teenager. He speaks without thinking. I set my cup down on the table with more deliberate force than necessary. The sharp clatter makes Chris jump, startled. No, Chris. It's not just because of the party. It's because of the last 3 years. It's because of my fall, when nobody, not even you, could come help me. It's because of the Sunday dinners that systematically got canceled. It's because of the thinly veiled contempt in your wife's eyes. It's because of your deafening silence when your son disrespects me. Chris looks utterly stunned, as if he's been struck. Mom, I never... Never what, Chris? Never noticed? Or never truly cared? He runs his hands over his face, clearly rattled, agitation radiating from him. Of course I care. You're my mom. I am your mom. But for the past few years, I felt more like an inconvenience. Someone you tolerate out of sheer obligation. That's not true. No? Then tell me, Chris, when was the last time you came here just to see me? Not to ask for something. Not because Lucas needed a place to stay. He opens his mouth to respond, then closes it again, wordless. There is no answer. See? You can't even remember. Chris looks genuinely shaken, his composure crumbling. Mom, I'm so sorry, I truly am. Things have been complicated. Work, the house, Jessica's constant demands. Jessica's demands, I repeat, a sad, ironic smile playing on my lips. Always more important, weren't they? He doesn't answer, but his silence speaks volumes, confirming everything. Chris, I'm not doing this to punish you or Lucas. I'm doing this because at 67, I've finally understood, irrevocably, that I deserve respect, that the years I dedicated to my family do not, under any circumstances, make me disposable. Nobody thinks you're disposable, Mom. No? That's as useless as you are. Those were your son's exact words. And what did you do? You mumbled a reprimand so low even he didn't hear it. Chris hangs his head, thoroughly ashamed. I should have been firmer. I should have made him apologize. Yes, you should have, but you didn't. We fall silent again. The coffee grows cold in our untouched cups. Forgotten. What did you change in the will? He finally asks. His voice barely a whisper, strained with apprehension. I look at my son. This man I raised with so much love, who now seems like an utter stranger sitting across my kitchen table. And I feel a complex mix of profound sadness and unwavering determination. The house will be sold. Half the value will go to a foundation supporting abandoned seniors. The other half will go to Liz. Chris pales, the color draining from his face. And your savings? They'll be converted into a fund for scholarships. And for me and Lucas? Personal items of sentimental value, if that still means anything at all to you. Chris looks like he's been punched squarely in the gut, his breath knocked out. Mom, you can't do this. Oh yes, I can, and I already have. But this house, it was always meant for me and Liz. And for many years that was precisely my plan. But plans change, Chris. People change. He stands abruptly, pacing the kitchen like a frantic caged animal. This isn't fair! You're punishing me and Lucas because of one thoughtless comment. No, Chris. I'm simply acknowledging the stark reality of our relationship. You and Lucas have your lives, your own priorities, and clearly, I'm not among them. That's not true. We love you. Love is shown, son, with actions, with presence, with respect. Chris stops pacing and looks at me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. What can I possibly do to fix this? I sigh deeply, a weary sound escaping me. I don't know if there's anything to fix, Chris. Some things, once broken, can never truly be put back the way they were. Don't say that, Mom. There has to be a way. I look out the window, my gaze drawn to the jabuticaba tree in the backyard. So many memories entwined with that tree. So many sun-drenched summers picking its sweet fruit with Chris when he was a boy. Then later with Lucas. Maybe there is, I finally say, my voice softer. But it won't be with empty promises or visits motivated by self-interest. Chris approaches, slowly then kneels beside me. In that moment, he looks so much like the little boy he used to be, asking forgiveness for some mischievous prank. Tell me what to do, Mom. Please. I reach out, gently touching his face, feeling the rough stubble of his beard. My boy. Now a man who, somewhere along the winding path of life, had lost his way. Start by being the father your son needs, not simply the one he wants. Teach him about true respect, about enduring values. Show him there's more to life than fleeting status and superficial appearances. David nods, hot tears streaming freely down his face. And what about us? You and me. As for us, time will tell, David. Time will tell. He embraces me, a choked, desperate sob escaping him like he hasn't since he was a small child. I feel his tears soak my shoulder, and for a fleeting moment, I allow myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Something fragile can still be salvaged from this fractured relationship. When David finally calms down, he pulls away and wipes his tear-streaked face with the back of his hand. I have to go. I promise I'll be back tomorrow. Can we talk more? Of course, I reply, deliberately not promising anything beyond that. I walk him to the door. Before he leaves, he turns back, hesitant. Mom, are you really enjoying your painting classes? I smile genuinely. I am. It's good to create something new at this point in my life. He nods, a thoughtful expression on his face. I'm glad to hear that. After Chris leaves, I return to the kitchen and collect the 2 untouched coffee cups. Through the window, I watch the jabuticaba tree sway gently in the late afternoon breeze. I think of my father, planting that tree before he left for the war. I think of all the generations it's seen grow up, all the untold stories it has silently witnessed. Will it bear witness to a reconciliation too? The next morning, I wake early. I slept surprisingly well, as if the conversation with Chris had finally lifted a tremendous weight from my shoulders. I haven't resolved anything definitively yet, but at least I finally voiced what had been stuck in my throat for far too long. I prepare my breakfast and sit at the table with a book, a cherished habit I've recently rediscovered. The phone rings, interrupting my quiet reading. Hello? Mom? It's Allison's voice, clear despite the vast ocean separating us. Everything okay? Everything's fine, honey. How about you? I'm good. I called because I had a strange dream about you last night. It got me worried. I smile. Allison has always been like that. Remarkably intuitive. I'm doing great, darling. I actually started a painting class. Really? That's wonderful, Mom. You always loved art. We talk for almost an hour. I tell her about my new classes, about the jabuticaba tree I'm painting. I carefully avoid mentioning the raw conversation with David or the drastic changes to the will. I don't want to burden her with worries. Mom, she says before we hang up, her voice softening. The offer still stands. Come stay with us for a while. The kids ask about you every single week. Who knows? Maybe during the holidays, Allison. I'm truly thinking about it. After we hang up, I realize that for the first time, I'm genuinely considering the trip. Before, I always found convenient excuses. Chris and Lucas needed me. The house would be empty. The journey was simply too long for my age. Now, none of those excuses hold any sway. The day passes peacefully. I read, indulge in a little gardening, prepare a simple lunch. In the afternoon, I receive a text from David. Can I stop by tonight with Lucas? I text back a simple yes, trying not to let my hopes soar too high. Around 7 in the evening, I hear the familiar sound of his car pulling up. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. Chris and Lucas walk in, both visibly uncomfortable, a palpable tension in the air around them. Lucas looks like he's been dragged here against his will. He wears that typical, sullen, disgruntled teenager expression. Good evening, Mom, Chris greets, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Hi, Grandma, Lucas mutters, avoiding eye contact. Good evening. Would you like some tea? I just made a fresh pot. We sit in the living room, the silence pressing heavily between us. Chris looks pointedly at Ethan, clearly expecting him to speak. Ethan, he finally interjects, his voice firm. Didn't you have something to say to your grandma? Ethan sighs dramatically, a theatrical display of teenage angst. I'm sorry for what I said at the party, Grandma. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. His words sound rehearsed, devoid of any genuine sincerity. I look at my grandson, This unfamiliar teenager who was once the little boy who'd picked jabuticaba berries with me. And a profound sadness washes over me. Ethan, look at me, I ask, my voice soft but steady. He reluctantly lifts his eyes, meeting mine briefly. Do you even know why I'm hurt? He shrugs, a careless gesture. Because I was rude. It's not just that. I'm hurt because, at some point, you stopped seeing me as your grandma who loves you, and started seeing me as something disposable, something worthless. Ethan looks genuinely surprised by my words, a flicker of something new in his eyes. Remember when you were little and used to spend weekends here? Remember how we'd pick those jabuticaba berries together? How you'd say you were going to live with me when you grew up? I see a distinct flicker of recognition in his eyes. For a brief, precious moment, the Ethan I knew seems to emerge from behind the impenetrable facade of the indifferent teenager. I remember, he admits, his voice now noticeably softer. What happened to that boy, Ethan? Does he still exist somewhere? Ethan lowers his head, offering no immediate response. David places a comforting hand on his son's shoulder, a silent encouragement. I don't know, Ethan finally says, his voice barely audible. Things changed. I changed. Yes, you grew up. That's natural. But growing up doesn't mean you stop valuing the people who truly love you. Ethan looks at his own restless hands, fidgeting. At school, it's different. Everyone has expensive things. They talk about lavish trips abroad, about the latest technology. Nobody talks about grandmas or jabuticaba trees. Ah, so that was it. The primal human desire to belong, to be accepted. How many of us haven't found ourselves navigating that treacherous path in life? Ethan, a few years from now, you won't even remember the names of those school friends. But your family, the people who truly love you, they'll always be here. He doesn't answer, but I can see that my words have resonated with him, piercing through his defenses. You know, I continue, my voice gentle, your great-grandfather, Frank, planted that jabuticaba tree before he went off to war. He didn't know if he'd come back alive. He wanted to leave something enduring for the family. Something that would last. Ethan looks out the window, his gaze drawn to the tree in the backyard, its silhouette stark against the fading light. And it's still here, he murmurs, almost to himself. Yes, some things last, Ethan. Some things have value far beyond what we can immediately see. David watches our interaction, tears glistening in his eyes. I realize with a profound clarity that this is likely the most honest conversation we've had in years. Grandma, Ethan says, his voice cracking slightly, filled with a raw emotion. I'm really sorry. Not just for what I said at the party, but for everything. This time, his words ring true, undeniably sincere. I extend my hand, and he reaches for it, gripping it. A simple, yet profoundly significant gesture. I know, dear, and I forgive you. Ethan stands up abruptly and hugs me. It's an awkward, typical teenage hug, but it is unequivocally real. I feel tears well up in my own eyes as I embrace him back, holding him tightly. I love you, Grandma, he whispers, so softly I almost don't hear it. I love you too, my dear. Always have. Always will. When we finally pull apart, I see that David is also deeply emotional. He joins our embrace, and for a precious moment we are simply a family. Imperfect, complicated, yes, but undeniably a family. Mom, David says when we finally sit down again, his voice hesitant. About the will. I raise my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "I don't want to talk about that now, David. That's not why you came, is it?" He looks instantly ashamed, his gaze dropping. "No, of course not. We came because we missed you. Because we need to fix things." "Then let's do that. One day at a time." Ethan looks around the living room, his eyes settling on the framed photographs on the walls. "Grandma, do you still have those pictures of when I was little? The ones we looked at together once?" I smile, genuinely surprised by his sudden interest. "I do. Want to see them?" He nods eagerly, and I go to retrieve the boxes of photographs. We spend the next hour poring over images from the past. Baby Ethan, his first faltering steps, joyous birthdays, cherished family Christmases. "Look at your hair, Dad!" Ethan laughs, pointing to a photo where David sports a hilariously typical 90s haircut. David laughs too, a genuine, hearty sound. "It was the style back then." It is a night unlike any we'd shared in years. There is laughter. There are shared memories. There is a tangible connection that I had believed lost forever. When they finally prepare to leave, Ethan surprises me with a shy, hopeful question. "Grandma, can I come over Saturday so you can teach me how to make that chocolate cake? The one you used to make when I was little?" I feel my heart swell with an almost painful joy. "Of course you can, my dear. I'll get all the ingredients ready." David hugs me tight before stepping out. "Thank you, Mom, for giving us this chance." "We all deserve second chances, son." After they leave, I sit on the porch, gazing at the jabuticaba tree. The stars twinkle brightly in the night sky, and I feel a profound peace that I haven't experienced in a very long time. I don't know what the future truly holds for our family. I don't know if this tentative reconciliation will last, or if it's merely a fleeting moment of clarity. What I do know, with unwavering certainty, is that for the first time in years, I feel hope. The analog watch on my wrist, the very one Ethan had disdained, ticks silently, a steady, rhythmic pulse. Each tick reminds me that time passes, inexorably. We can't recover the lost years, but we can, with conscious effort, make the future years different. Tomorrow, I'll call Mr. Miller. Not to reverse all the changes in the will. Some decisions were made with wisdom and will, rightly, remain. But perhaps there's room for nuanced adjustments, to acknowledge sincere efforts at change, genuine attempts at mending. And maybe, just maybe, I'll call Allison to plan that long-postponed trip to Portugal, to meet my other grandchildren, to spend cherished time with my daughter, to create vibrant new memories, instead of merely lamenting the faded old ones. The jabuticaba tree in the backyard sways gently with the night breeze. I think of my father, planting it before he departed for the war. I think of all the generations it has witnessed grow, all the silent stories it has held within its ancient branches. Some things truly last. Some wounds heal. Some trees continue to bear fruit, decade after decade, nourishing new generations with their enduring sweetness. As my father used to say, "Susan, life is like this jabuticaba tree. Sometimes it seems like it's dried up, that it won't bear fruit anymore. But all it takes is a little care, a little fresh water, and it blossoms again." Perhaps that's exactly what we're doing now, carefully watering old roots, patiently waiting for new fruits to emerge. And as the stars twinkle above me, I feel that, from somewhere unseen, my father, my mother, and my Richard are smiling, their quiet approval embracing this new chapter, that is only just beginning to unfold. The clock strikes 10. It is time to go inside, to rest. Tomorrow will be a new day, brimming with new possibilities. Some inheritances cannot be measured in mere money or properties. The most valuable ones are those we carry forever in our hearts. The profound capacity for love, for forgiveness, for the courage to start over. And this, I realize now with utmost clarity, is the true legacy I want to leave behind. Not a house, not money, but the indelible lesson that it's never, ever too late to rebuild bridges, to heal deep wounds, to find unwavering dignity in the boundless power of love. As I gently close the porch door, I look one last time at the Djibouti tree in the backyard, its grand silhouette sharply outlined against the vast, star-studded sky. I smile, feeling a quiet, serene certainty settle deep within my heart. Some stories don't end. They simply gain new, vibrant chapters. And ours, I have faith, is only just beginning.